Yemen faces the worst famine the world has seen in decades, the UN warns.
Here's a summary of the article.
United Nations, conflict-torn Yemen, is falling off a cliff, and will face the worst famine the world has seen for decades unless donors, and especially its Gulf neighbors, contribute generously to this year's UN humanitarian appeal for $3.85 billion, the UN humanitarian chief warned Wednesday. Mark Lowcock said Gulf countries, especially Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, which contributed generously to UN appeals in 2018 and 2019, cut back drastically last year. Because of the state in the country now, where there are already pockets of famine, what we're going to see is the worst famine the world has seen for decades. So, there is a lot at stake and there's an urgency. The devastating conflict in the Arab world's poorest country erupted in 2014, when Iranian-backed Houthi rebels seized Yemen's capital, Sana'a, and much of the country's north. Lowcock said U.S. President Joe Biden's new Yemen policy aimed at ending the six-year war and halting support for the coalition, and the way it has been welcomed especially by Saudi Arabia, does create a major opportunity for peace and progress in Yemen. Last year's $3.4 billion appeal received only about $1.8 billion, he said, with the UN receiving only $300 million of the $500 million that Saudi Arabia pledged, just a modest contribution from the UAE, and Kuwait only coming in with a late $20 million pledge, he said. Lowcock said Monday will be his fourth pledging conference for Yemen, and he's expecting a higher turnout, a higher level presence including foreign ministers, and strong representation from the Gulf countries, which he called an encouraging sign.
This post received a score of 26,000, with an upvote ratio of 95%. Here are the top comments in response to this article.
It's so sickening. I remember the pictures and article about a baby who was 34 days old starving to death. Imagine being brought into a world just to immediately die from hunger.
And no sanctions. Not even one. Just words. A proof that our intervention in Libya, Iraq and Syria has never been about the people, because we could have stopped other wars and didn't do anything because there wasn't any benefit on it. Even worst, we supplied them weapons.
100% of America's military-industrial complex is to give welfare to defense contractor corporations. If America wasn't a craptastic country, Lockheed would go out of business.
That is a symptom of it but not the cause. The cause is the need to keep the US dollar the petrodollar. The US dollar, since becoming a fiat currency, is nothing more than a giant Ponzi scheme. But as long as the rest of the world requires US dollars to buy oil on the global market, there will always be a demand and the Fed can print money with little consequence.
Would appreciate pointing me to further reading on this. Edit. As in verifiable source material with citations, academic or journalistic. I hate conspiracy theories with a passion.
In simple terms, it likely did not have a nefarious intent at the outset, but the US dollar was used to stabilize the world economy after WW II in the Bretton Woods Accord, which created the IMF and World Bank. That collapsed after the 70s oil crisis and shifted from dollar-gold connection to dollar-oil connection. Again, may not be nefarious, but like anything in capitalism, selfish rationality may drive toward destructive and ultimately counterproductive decisions due to myopic goals. So wars, military actions will be waged for economic reasons, not humanitarian reasons. In my understanding, Libya is likely the most egregious recent example.
That's helpful, thank you.
It's just that virtually no outlet reported on it. Yemen for me devolved into a topic similar to climate change. I was once incredibly passionate about it and tried to change that shit, but with time I learned I can virtually do nothing in that regard and that everyone around me ignores these issues. I guarantee you, Yemen will have similar issues in half a decade, because they had similar issues half a decade ago. But unlike climate, both sides on the Yemen conflict are shitty. Whoever wins, the citizen lose.
Isn't Yemen a proxy war between Saudi Arabia and Iran?
Yes, both of whom are extremely shitty.
They should just agree to let Australia have it as a compromise.
This video was automatically created by Reddit to speech. The article and comments in this video were selected from Reddit according to their upvotes, and any paraphrasing was performed by smmry.com, without any human intervention.